Welcome, future educators, to this explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a massive shift in special education, moving from the old pull-out problem to a modern inclusive solution. We're talking about something absolutely foundational to your future classrooms, models of inclusion. Specifically, we're going to break down the push-in model versus the full inclusion model. So, let's just get right into it.
Here's the game plan for today. We'll start with core educational inclusion concepts, dive deep into the push-in model, unpack the full inclusion model, directly compare those two, and then finish up with some practical collaborative teaching strategies that you can actually use right away.
All right, Section 1, the push-in model. Let's see what this targeted strategy is all about.
The absolute crucial word when talking about this model is support. Instead of removing a student from their standard environment, which, really used to be the norm in education, the support is brought directly to them during the regular lesson. The student stays right there in the exact same classroom as their peers, engaging with the very same core curriculum.
This approach completely shifts the ecosystem of the classroom. The push-in model heavily emphasizes professional collaboration. It isn't just about randomly placing two adults in a single room. No, it's about intentionally bringing individualized support, specialized services, and targeted resources directly into the general education setting. So, what does this actually look like on a random Tuesday? Basically, the general education teacher leads the whole class, setting the pace and delivering the primary instruction. Meanwhile, the special educator literally pushes into the classroom to provide immediate, targeted support. That might mean offering a quick extra explanation, simplifying a really complex task, or just working quietly with an individual student or small group right there at their desks. Let's put this into a real-world scenario. Imagine you're teaching a grade 6 English class. You're up at the front, passionately teaching the structure of an essay. But let's be real. Essay writing can be incredibly overwhelming for some students. While you instruct the broader group, your co-teacher, the special educator, is right there in the trenches helping a student with learning difficulties by breaking that huge essay task into manageable, bite-sized steps. The student is totally participating in the main lesson, just with the extra guidance they specifically need. And that brings us to some massive advantages. Because the student never leaves the room, they don't miss out on regular class activities. This promotes really vital social interaction with their peers and, honestly, significantly reduces those feelings of isolation that the old pull-out programs often accidentally created. Plus, immediate academic support is right there the second they stumble. But of course, no system is perfect, right? There are definitely limitations to keep in mind. As classroom teachers, you have to manage this dynamic very carefully. If you've got multiple educators talking at once, it can be pretty distracting for the rest of the class if it's not handled well. It requires incredibly strong, deliberate coordination and communication between you and your colleagues to make it actually feel seamless. Moving right along, let's hit Section 2, the full inclusion model. Now, this represents a major shift in philosophy. Under the full inclusion model, all students, including those with disabilities, spend 100% of their time in the regular classroom, period. There are absolutely no separate special education classes. The curriculum itself is modified and every single student learns under the exact same roof, getting the appropriate support and modifications they need. Full inclusion is ultimately about bringing all the puzzle pieces together. It integrates peers, general educators, and customized support like therapists or classroom aides into one unified, inseparable environment. Every piece fits perfectly into the main classroom setting. So, how exactly does full inclusion work day to day? Well, in this model, you as the general classroom teacher are responsible for all the students. You achieve this by relying heavily on differentiated instruction and incredibly flexible teaching methods. We're talking lots of visual aids, interactive group work, the whole shebang. Support staff are definitely still there to assist when needed, but the core responsibility for tailoring that learning experience rests right on your shoulders. The advantages here are really profound. By keeping everyone together and adapting your curriculum to individual needs, this model fundamentally builds student confidence and independence. It pushes you, the educator, to naturally incorporate universally beneficial strategies, like combining visual aids with written instructions, which makes the learning environment richer and more accessible for absolutely everyone in the room. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? However, there are some very real, practical hurdles to keep in mind. Full inclusion requires robust resources. Without adequate support staff and tools, the whole model kind of struggles. Plus, despite your absolute best differentiated instruction, some students realistically just might require more individualized, intensive attention than a busy general classroom can naturally provide. All right, let's jump into Section 3, comparing models. Because these two educational concepts can often blur together in practice, ask yourself, what exactly is the difference? When you are planning your classroom environment, how do you clearly distinguish between these two approaches? Let's clear that up.
When you break it down side by side, the crucial takeaway is this. The push-in model is a specific support strategy. It's an action, a method of bringing specialized help into the room for specific moments or lessons. On the flip side, the full inclusion model is an overarching educational philosophy and system. It's the core belief and structure that all students fundamentally belong together, without any structural separation whatsoever. So one is a tactic you use, the other is the entire playing field. And that brings us to our final core area, Section 4, collaborative teaching strategies. To execute either of these models successfully on a Monday morning, you absolutely must master working alongside other educators. And that collaboration starts long before the bell rings. The foundation of co-teaching requires shared planning, shared instruction, and shared assessment. You literally have to sit down together to set mutual goals for both regular and special needs students, monitor their progress as a team, and constantly provide feedback to each other. It has to be a true equal partnership. Let's look at a few specific methods you can use. A great foundational strategy is one teach, one assist. Here, the general teacher explains a broad concept, while the other educator actively roams the room supporting individual students. For instance, you could be at the board explaining a really complex math concept, while your co-teacher spots the students who are confused and offers them targeted, quiet help without ever stopping the main lesson. You also have options to completely change up the geography of your classroom. You could use parallel teaching to divide the entire class right down the middle, having both educators teach the exact same content simultaneously to drastically reduce the student-teacher ratio. Or there's alternative teaching, where one educator pulls a small group aside for extra intensive help while the main lesson goes on. You can even use station teaching, where each of you commands a different part of the room and teaches a totally different part of the lesson. It's super dynamic. And finally, we have team teaching. In this model, both of you teach together equally at the front of the room. You interact, you bounce ideas off each other, and you manage the class as a totally unified front. Imagine explaining something dynamic, like the water cycle, by playing off each other's expertise. It's highly engaging for the students and incredibly effective for keeping the momentum going. Regardless of the specific model or co-teaching strategy you choose to employ, your guiding professional mandate is summarized perfectly right here. Focus on inclusive learning for all students. That is the ultimate goal behind all of this structure. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. As you prepare to step in and lead your own classroom, consider this. How will you adapt your collaborative teaching strategies to ensure every single piece of the puzzle fits? How will you work with your colleagues to guarantee that every single student truly belongs and succeeds? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep structuring those inclusive environments, and I'll catch you in the next one.